All right. So I think at this point,
Morning, sorry.
good morning. I think we've got a quorum, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the May 20th, 2021 meeting of the Kingston Local Development Corporation. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted later today or early tomorrow on our City of Kingston's YouTube channel, and will also be linked to the City of Kingston's website by clicking on the agenda. You'll see a link for this meeting. In attendance today, we have, I'm just going to read down the list. Members, Eleni Luza, James Demos, Annie Turco-Levin, Glenn Fitzgerald, Hayes Clement, B.A. Feeney, Miles Chrétien, Pat Courtney Strong, Paul Cachera. We also are joined by our executive director, Mandy Brock, and our new counsel, Bob Ryan. And I think I've got everyone. Is there anyone from the board that I missed in terms of roll call for today? Okay, great. And so I guess the first thing that we have on our agenda normally would be updates from Council Redder. Mandy, do you know if George had any updates for us today?
No, he doesn't have any.
Okay.
He did send a memo, but he doesn't have any.
Okay, perfect. And so up next, if everyone's ready to move on to our treasurer's report. BA, do you have updates? I want to thanks for sending out the information yesterday.
A little bit late. I apologize for getting them out late. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to, it's a pretty brief report. We don't have a whole lot of things happening, so it's as much updates as anything else. But just to give you an idea, we do have 17 loans outstanding. Current balance as of the end of last month, $680,677. We continue to have the one loan that we've been working with for the better part of a year and a half now that is in litigation. All of our micro loans that the KLDC had done, the COVID micro loans that were done about a year ago, they are currently paying as agreed, and we've actually had one that have paid off early. We do have one situation. It's a relatively small balance, but the Trolley Museum is currently past due. Attempts from Mandy's office to reach them have not been successful as of yet. So the next step would be to ask George just to drop them a kind of a nice friendly reminder, I guess. So that would be the next step at this point. As I said, they've not returned telephone calls to the office.
How far are they past due, BA?
They're a month and plus. So it's just kind of a friendly, you know, hey, just to let you know. But I know Mandy had mentioned that she had tried to phone them and was not successful in having anybody call back. So I'm not aware of any changes in board or management down there. So I'm pretty sure we have the proper contact folks for the Trolley Museum.
Were they closed? They've been closed for a long period of time, right? Through COVID?
To my knowledge, yes, they have.
Do you know if I don't know if they've reopened. Mandy, have they reopened yet?
I have no idea. Nobody responds when I reach out to them.
Yeah, I mean, I saw on their Facebook page that I think that they planned on opening this spring, but I also haven't, had any direct contact. But we can also try again.
So again, we'll continue to make efforts to reach them and just to see where they are in this process and whether a spring reopening is something in the cards, and if there is a game plan to get caught back up and get back on a positive status with us. So
I'm sorry. We also have an agreement with them because they're seasonal that they only pay, I think it's May through October. So they did not make their October payment, obviously, because of COVID. But I'll continue to try to reach out to them, and maybe a little nudge from George might move things along a little quicker.
Okay. Just to give you an idea, a little bit revenue and expenses as we finished up the first 4 months of the year. Not a whole lot happening. I did send out an income statement. We are showing just $3,800 to the plus at this point. And that is from operations. The expenses, for the most part, are operational expenses. You'll see our insurance policies, both for the KLDC as a whole, as well as the property for the business park. They've been paid, and then our legal and accounting. But after that, the expenses have been minimal. Income is primarily derived from interest income, bank interest. We have invoiced Arconic for their annual payments, and that has not come in as of yet. So hopefully that'll be coming on soon. That'll change the picture. Obviously, that's a very solid, very large amount coming in. But just to give you an idea, as I said, on the balance statement or the income statement, we are showing year to date, we are positive $3,825 up until this point. We are waiting for the income, the rental income coming in from Arconic. The Kingston Business Park itself, nothing out of the ordinary. As I was just mentioning, we have utilities, we have the insurance for the business park, and we have marketing expenses that are an ongoing monthly bill. So the business park, in the last page that I have sent out to you, does show a net income in the negative, but again, we are awaiting that rental or lease income coming in from Arconic. And I apologize, I kind of glossed over. Page 2 that I had sent you was just a roster of the outstanding loans. So if you do have any questions, it gives you a pretty good handle on who, the when, the dollar amounts, and their current status all the way to the right. So I'm not quite sure if anybody does have questions on those.
That's really impressive and heartening that the COVID microloans are current. Has that taken a lot of prodding to collect, Mandy, or does it just happen? People stay current with it?
No, for the most part, everybody was pretty good. There were a few people that didn't realize that the amortization schedule was actually what they were supposed to be using to make their payments. And after they signed off on their documents, they just shoved everything in a folder and put it away. So I did have to contact them, and once they went through their folders, they realized that they did have them, and they quickly caught up.
And lastly, on my side, one of the bills that I had mentioned, one of the insurance bills, was actually to our D&O, our liability policy. That premium did come in. Ray Guerin had invoiced us from Commercial Coverage, Inc. That had actually renewed automatically in April. It is something that the board may wish to consider to take a look at. We had a little bit of communication issues with Ray. We were hoping to have a conversation before the renewal date. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Thank goodness it did renew automatically, but it may be something that the board would wish to revisit, just to take a look at that as a policy, potential options for other carriers, in particular, just to make sure that we are covered adequately. There have been questions over the past couple of months whether that we are covered adequately. The policy, to my knowledge, has not been reviewed in a couple of years. So just as kind of a housekeeping item, it might not be a bad thing for the board to consider moving forward on that, down that path also. That's really it from me, unless anyone has any particular questions I can try and answer. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, BA. Can I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report? All right, I see first from Pat and a second from Paul. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. So thank you again, BA, for your efforts there. And thank you, Mandy, for keeping track of everybody. One item that I wanted to, before we go into new business, really just to kind of an update on our process. Many of you may have read in the paper that we're, as part of city government, working on a kind of a new reopening strategy. We've adopted much of the CDC and states guidelines on mask wearing, but as part of also the lifting of restrictions on in-person indoor events and meetings and gatherings, we're working in City Hall to be able to create a hybrid meeting platform that will allow us to meet in person while also meeting via Zoom, so that we'll be able to host individuals both in a room, but then also those that want to join us remotely, and allow also for the meetings to still be recorded and posted. And so we're working on that right now jointly with our IT department and Common Council, and we'll be unveiling plans over the next week or two. Our hope is to be back together, or at least have the option of being back in the same room, in July. And so we've got hopefully just a month or two more of the solely remote meetings. But this is we do want to make sure that we have a process set up that can accommodate kind of the new reality of remote and the hybrid meeting process. And so more to come on that, but I just kind of wanted to give everyone just a heads up of where we are and when we may be able to start to actually see each other in person going forward. So, but we'll keep you updated, as plans evolve. But it will, that's the current status, kind of our meeting. Does anyone have any questions at this point about that? Yeah. Hey.
If it's going to be July, would there be some sense in just postponing it till September so that people on vacation in the summer could at least sort of work it through Zoom for July and August?
Yeah, so actually, so the good thing about this new platform is that you'll be able to join either way. And so the way the meeting will be set up is that we'll be able to use relatively newer technology that allows for us to be in person around a table, to be able to have camera equipment that will be able to hear and see us that are in the room, but us to be also able to see and interact with people that are on Zoom via monitors. And so going forward, we hope to be able to be allowed to continue this hybrid approach for the foreseeable future. Some of that will depend on what the governor decides to do in the state legislature in terms of open meetings law and whether they will allow, kind of this remote meeting process to continue. But for now, we're going to create a hybrid approach so that you will, during the summer months, still be able to join remotely, but those that are available will be able to meet in person. Any other thoughts on that?
I like the Zoom platform. Even for the public, it allows broader access for people to watch meetings.
Yeah, us too, right? So I think it's really helped. We've had more people attend our public meetings, our public hearings than ever before, because of the ease of being able to do it on the go, while they're, whatever they're doing, they can tune in and watch or listen. So it's really great. So speaking of virtual meetings, actually, while we're here, we could also, we had the April virtual meeting, and then we had a special virtual meeting at the end of April. And so we have both of those minutes to approve, or basically the videos of those meetings to approve. And so could I have a motion to approve those two meetings minutes? Hayes, thank you. Eleni, thank you. First and second. So all in favor on that one? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. So the minutes are out of the way. And so at our April 26th meeting, as we know, the board allowed us to enter into an agreement with Harris Speech to be able to work with us on our acquisition and disposition of properties related to the 21 North Front Street redevelopment project. And so since that April meeting of a few weeks ago, Mr. Ryan has been able to look at all of the documents and policies and procedures that the KLDC has and that the city has gone through. I think he's prepared today to go over with us some of his initial thoughts. So I guess at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you, Bob, and let you kind of give an overview to the board here.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for engaging Harris Beach. I look forward to working with you with respect to this project. As you're aware, in March of this year, the city authorized the transfer of a city-owned parcel to the KLDC pursuant to Section 1411 of the Not-for-Profit Corporation Law. And as the mayor mentioned, subsequent to being engaged by this board, I did take a look at the background materials and the goals for the development of that city-owned parcel. And my recommendation would be for a land development agreement to be entered into, which would be a three-party agreement among the city, the KLDC, and the developer. This agreement would lay out and set forth all the terms and conditions for the transfer of the property as well as the development. Once that agreement is negotiated and developed, obviously we would come before the board with an authorizing resolution, which would the board would consider that, and they would consider accepting the property and executing the land development agreement, as well as make any determinations that would be necessary under the Public Authority Accountability Act. In addition, once the land development agreement is authorized, then the board can proceed with issuing the notices required under the Public Authority Accountability Act. And then it becomes a timing process of having that timing take place. And that's where the actual fee transfer could take place between the city and the KLDC, and then also the KLDC to the developer. And then once that occurs, then again, the provisions of the land development agreement would still be in place, and the development would take place pursuant to that agreement. So that is the overall recommended structure that I have for this particular project. Yes, I think there's a question.
Yeah, please, go ahead. Yeah.
Bob, why would a development agreement with anybody come before a discussion and a decision on whether or not to even accept the property into the KLDC?
Because that would lay out the terms and conditions of your acceptance. Because if you don't like the terms and conditions, you wouldn't accept the property. So I wouldn't recommend that you accept the property without knowing the terms and conditions of the disposition of that property and the development of that property. Because again, my recommendation isn't that you accept the property and then you will take that property and somehow develop it or dispose of it in any manner. It would be pursuant to this three-way agreement. It would incorporate why the city is proposing to transfer it to the KLDC, and then also the disposition from the KLDC to the ultimate developer.
So, but doesn't that preclude any other option beyond a development agreement with one specific party?
It does. This is basically the KLDC is being utilized to implement what the city conducted up until this point. So it's a specific, it's the city's project, and it's utilizing the KLDC to implement that project, which is actually, it's a common process that occurs in other municipalities, and we're currently doing it in other cities right now.
When the Common Council voted to turn it over to the KLDC, was it sort of with a notion specifically stated that it was going to be used for a specific development?
It has a specific purpose in the city council resolution that it has to be used for public parking and a public park for that particular parcel that they're seeking to transfer to the KLDC.
Glenn Fitzgerald. Question on the, with regard to the ABO. In the past, there was an approval period if we were going to commit or contract property. How would this contract or the transfer will be under the direction approval of the ABO prior to anything being done?
Yes, once the KLDC receives title to the property, in order to dispose of that property under a negotiated disposition, rather than publicly advertising it for bids, just putting it up for, you know, whatever the highest price you can receive for it. A 90-day notice is required to be submitted to various state recipients. And so it's that 90 days that would have to expire prior to actual fee title being transferred to the ultimate developer.
Thank you.
And so, so next steps, Bob, would be for a development agreement with some of the stipulations and process, you know, that you noted would be kind of laid out in writing, and then that would be provided to the board to be able to review. And then, as you mentioned, once everyone agrees to that, that would then allow us to then take title, if you will, to the process, to the property.
Yes, correct. Really, the next step would be, I would like to, you know, start drafting the land development agreement and try to work with all the parties to come up with an agreement that everybody, it's acceptable to all parties. That would be reviewed, of course, by the board, and if acceptable, then that would be authorized. And this would all take place prior to fee title being transferred from the city to the KLDC. So once that agreement is, you know, developed and all parties are in agreement, the board would approve that, execute it, and then we would issue the 90-day notice under the Public Authority Accountability Act, and then we can work on the actual transfer title from the city to the KLDC. And then the subsequent step would be, you know, working from the land being transferred fee title from the KLDC to the developer. Again, it would be pursuant to this land development agreement. But I do recommend as an initial step and for timing purposes that the actual first step be the authorization to commission a independent appraisal of the property. Again, these are in order just to fulfill the required procedures under the Public Authority Accountability Act, because an independent appraisal of the property has to be maintained in the records in the file for the disposition. And also depending upon, the results of such appraisal and the terms and conditions of the land development agreement, there may be some other required steps under the Public Authority Accountability Act. So if we have that process started while we're developing the land development agreement, we will know what additional approvals or authorizations that we would need to do. And then we could have that built into the authorizing resolution. So once we come to the board with that resolution, the procedural steps would be accomplished, and then we can move forward with the actual transfer of the property and the development of the property.
Rob, Glenn Fitzgerald, once again, have you seen or personally had all the contracts that have originated with the city and the developer, starting from the RFQ, the proposal? Have you seen everything, and is everything in order?
I believe I've seen everything. There may be stuff that I have not, but I do have the RFQ and the agreements going back, a number of years. Yeah, I mean, from what I can see, the secret process, the RFQ, the proposal, it seems to be in order. It wouldn't affect the process that we're laying out today by, utilizing the LDC to effectuate, what transpired with the city to date. Like I said, this is a process that, is utilized by other municipalities throughout the state.
The answer seems a little vague. There's been quite a bit of reporting that some contracts aren't available or haven't been seen. And so our question is, we don't want to transfer something or get involved in something that is not precise right from the initial RFQ. I would say that if you've seen it and had it in your hand, I would think it would be part of your file, all the contracts that have originated since day one.
Right.
Saying that it seems like it, I don't think that's what we need. We need to be precise that you have everything.
Yep, I fully agree. And by the time that a resolution is put before the board, before you even accept the property from the city, I will ensure that I've seen the entire record, and I would give my opinion as to, the sufficiency of what took place prior to that time period. So again, before the board actually acts on anything, that review would be conducted, and my opinion would be given.
Thank you.
And so I think what I understood, Bob, from your most recent comment was that really the first act for the KLDC to take would be for us to, for the board to authorize an appraisal of 21 North Front Street prior to us entering into a land development agreement or accepting the property. We want to know, have an appraisal of it. That's accurate?
Yeah. That's accurate. Again, it's in anticipation of this transaction. It would be good to, start again due diligence and get that appraisal started, because it also is a requirement under the Public Authority Accountability Act. The only downside is it may not be necessary if, in a worst case scenario, the board ultimately doesn't, move forward, then, it's sort of a wasted step. But, on the other hand, it's part of the process, and assuming that, everything's in order, then it would be worthwhile to do that, because it would save time, and it's required for the record.
Bob, what does the law say about how the appraiser should be picked?
It actually just states an independent appraisal of the value of the property to be disposed of.
If I could suggest that as we look for an appraiser, that we would consider an out-of-market appraiser, just to, again, put some distance and space between the valuation on that property and the project itself.
I agree.
Paul?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Also, there's been properties transferred amongst other agencies in the past where the initial RFQ went out and the market changed substantially. So, Bob, would it be fair to say an appraiser has to really look at the market conditions at the time of the acceptance of the RFQ? Or is that a question more for us to have with an appraiser? Because, you know, there's been properties that have been transferred and sold from other development corps that are probably worth 10 times what they were when they first started the process. Nobody would bid on them, right? And except certain entities that had, you know, deep government funding. And, you know, now those properties are probably worth 10 times the value because of the market conditions. So would the appraiser take those things into consideration as well?
Well, I can't really comment as to what the appraiser will take into consideration or not, because that's out of my expertise. However,
Okay.
the appraisal would be a current time appraisal, because again, the appraisal is really reflecting the transfer from the KLDC to the developer. Under the Public Authority Accountability Act, they just want in the record, you know, what the fair market value of that particular parcel is at the time that it is transferred by the public authority, which is the KLDC. So it's not really the appraisal. It has nothing to do with the city transferring the property to the KLDC.
So at the time that this request went out for a proposal, we didn't have an appraisal at that time?
KLDC wasn't even mentioned in the process. So certainly we would not have one. I don't know.
Well, BA, that's not what I mean. We
Okay.
as an entity, I mean, we as a city.
Yeah, I was going to
Right.
say that would be more perhaps the mayor if the city had one. I don't know.
Yeah, we did not do an appraisal of the property
Okay.
prior to doing it.
Okay. So the RFQ was based on, you know, the best possible usage that fits and so on and so forth, correct? So it wasn't based on a value of this property at the time.
No, I mean, our RFP was based on the property actually remaining public parking.
Okay.
So again, that was, you know, our goal was to not sell the property for a different use. It
Right.
was to be able to make sure that the property could be redeveloped, you know, in the air, but that the remaining parking would stay. And in this case, or in the RFP, we proposed to double it to 280 or something like that. And so that is, so ours at the time, you know, we felt as though, you know, it was, our goal was to just continue to provide public parking.
Right.
And that's an important point. The way the Public Authority Accountability Act is sort of generally structured is it's under the premise that, you know, sort of property gets disposed of to the highest bidder for any purpose. So when you have development, when there's these development entities disposing of property, there's numerous situations that, you know, highest value isn't the goal, it's how the property is going to be developed. And that's why they did build in the ability to do a negotiated disposal and an ability to do a disposal for less than fair market value, because they understand that there's other goals that take precedent over just obtaining the highest value from whoever for any purpose. So in this purpose, the value actually is not relevant. It's relevant, the appraisal and value is relevant for the purposes of just satisfying the legal requirements of the Public Authority Accountability Act. It's the goal really is ensuring that the parcel is developed the way, the city and the KLDC wants that parcel to be developed. And that's where the land development agreement is very important, because that ensures that it gives assurance to the city where it knows when the land is actually fee title is transferred from the city to the KLDC. They know that the KLDC is not going to do anything with it, because again, all three parties are signatories to this agreement. And then the KLDC knows exactly what's going to happen when it goes to the developer. So it's not a mystery, it's all laid out. So each party can have assurance to what's going to happen once the fee title leaves the city, goes to the LDC, and then from the LDC to the developer.
Bob, is it an issue that the original RFQ from 2016 was not and could not be awarded to the current Kingstonian developers? And in terms of the KLDC's disposition, how can it know it is following the guidelines laid out in that RFQ if the original recipient of the RFQ was another entity which is no longer a party to this process? Yeah,
I mean, these are, issues we can certainly discuss, and I would prefer to discuss any of those types of issues sort of in a non-public attorney-client privilege situation. But this process can be used. When a city exercises its right to transfer property from the city to a LDC under 1411, and then the LDC does have the ability to, again, negotiate a disposition. This process can be used without a procurement process, so to speak. So, I mean, we can get into, the process that occurred and, what the possible ramifications of that are. But again, I would prefer to speak in attorney-client privilege session about those.
So in terms of next steps for the board, I think that, there's definitely more to talk about, and there's more to research and write up. I mean, Bob's only been with us for about 3 weeks or less at this point, but I do think that the suggestion of getting an appraisal done is good. And so I would ask for a motion for the board to allow us to hire that appraiser, and just to kind of talk to BA and some of the other concerns. Would we be able to, can we define out of area as out of county, out of region, out of state? Where, how far out do we want to, we should be clear, like for me, so that when Mandy and I are working to, bring in a firm, that it's, out of where?
I would say Capital District.
Yeah, I think you're going to find more commercial appraisers of the appropriate kind, Westchester and the Capital region. So just sort of if we could say out of Mid-Hudson Valley region, I think that covers it.
So would someone like to make that motion with including that language in it? So
I'll make the motion.
Yeah. So that would be to authorize us to hire an appraiser outside of the Mid-Hudson Valley region to give an appraisal on 21 North Front Street.
And I think us is maybe the president of the KLDC and the treasurer in terms of making a final selection.
Is there a second on that?
Second that.
I just have a quick question. So Hayes amended Andy's original.
I think it should say that we authorize the president and the treasurer to select a commercial appraiser.
Okay.
Outside the Mid-Hudson Valley region.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, so I think
So
we had
Andy would withdraw her motion, right? Just as a point of order, right, Andy? You're going to withdraw your motion, and then Hayes will
I can either
restate it.
withdraw it or Hayes can amend it, and then we approve Hayes's amendment,
Okay.
one or the other. Robert's rules.
So Mandy, I think you had the first, and then you had the amendment, and then I think you had a second on the amendment, right? From Glenn? Am I following that right?
Yes.
Who did the first?
I don't know who did the first. So why don't we, so how about Glenn, you can, well, Hayes motioned it. So he did the first, right? So he motioned his amendment, right? So, and then Glenn seconded Hayes' amendment. And so then we need just the all in favor at this point on that.
All right.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay. So that passes. So I think we've got, great. So that's great. And so we'll get started on that work. And Bob, you're going to go ahead and you've got some more work to do as well, you know, before
Yes.
our next meeting. And if, does anyone have any other specific questions at this point, or I mean, more general questions at this point?
And I will add, you know, I think that's a good step to move forward with the appraisal, and in the interim, I will make sure I, you know, receive and have all the documents and review those, and also start, you know, preparing the necessary agreements. And of course, if any issues come up, you know, consult with the board about that.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else for today? I think that was our only other business item for today.
I think you wanted to select a secretary.
Oh yes, I did. I did threaten that at the last meeting. Thank you, Hayes. Was there anyone interested, since my rousing speech on how exciting the world of being the KLDC secretary was, is anyone interested in putting their name forward for that role? Paul, are you?
Yeah, I'll do it since nobody else wants to.
I nominate Paul Kuchera to be secretary.
Is there a second on that? All right. Thanks, James. All right. So all in favor on Paul Kuchera? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Well, thanks, Paul. And Mandy will work with you if there's anything in particular that we need to done for that role. But thank you. Mandy, did you have anything else that you wanted to share today?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. All right, everybody. I think that's all. And so if nothing else, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. All right, Hayes, I have a second on that. Paul, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. Okay, stay cool. It's going to be hot out there.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.